Hi everyone, welcome to the Mindfully Gay podcast, and we are going to do something a little different, and that's we're going to do a three-part series. And this three-part series is going to focus on physical, mental, and spiritual fitness. Now, this is something that's come up, right?
Yeah, I think we've gotten a few emails and people are definitely interested in what we're talking about, but there's this question about how to get started, how do you get moving, what does that look like?
Right.
And so it feels like the feedback I'm getting from those emails is we should spend some time on this.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I just have to say though, because the thing, the thing that excites me about getting feedback like that, getting messages from people, is that it's indicative of them starting to take ownership of this with us.
Yeah.
And that's the powerful part when people start to listen, to not only engage with it and bring it into their own lives, but to start to maybe think about how it could be better for other people in our community. That shows this ownership part, and that's what it is. It's not just us three.
Right.
It's all of us. It's all this community, and everyone's, we're starting to get some contribution, and we're starting to feel some ownership from other people, and I think it's a very exciting place to be.
I'm glad you said that, because it really has been the feedback that you all are giving us that's really prompting our podcast episodes and the topics that we have. So our three-part series, we're going to start with physical fitness, and I wanted to say something in regards to that. So it's physical, mental, and spiritual. Now, I teach yoga, and I teach, when we say yoga, or when anyone says yoga, the image I think people have is like, oh, you go to a class, a yoga studio or a gym or something, and you lay out your yoga mat, and you're going to be moving, you're going to be doing poses. It's a physical practice. It's a physical practice. And so certainly you're going to come out of that, after even that one time or 6 months worth of yoga practicing, you're going to get more flexible, you get strong, you tone your body. I mean, just all kinds of wonderful physical things do happen. But another thing that happens kind of in the background, almost in a subtle fashion, is that things are shifting. Things are changing within you on an emotional level, on a mental level, and definitely I think, on a spiritual level too. But you don't go into a yoga class thinking, oh, I'm going to get spiritual today. It's not that. You go in, I was like, I've got tight hamstrings, and so hopefully some stretching is going to help me out. So I think it's on purpose that yoga, as we know it, as the kind of the front door and the entryway, is a physical practice.
For sure.
But if you continue with it and become consistent with it and do it for some time, you'll start to experience these other shifts. And like I said, you'll feel something different in your emotional state of mind, your mental state of mind, and even how you kind of view spirituality and kind of this, and however you might define that. But I think yoga is that pathway. It starts with the physical, and if we follow what's called the 8 limbs of yoga, the 8th limb is enlightenment and bliss. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we all got there, got to that point? But that's that spiritual kind of, I'm using the word spiritual, but it's really kind of beyond that. But to experience something beyond our physical bodies. But it starts with that physical place.
Sure.
So,
but it also, if I may, it's also very much about that physical challenge and approaching it day in and day out, or whether every other day, whatever it may be, with some consistency. You're getting into a rhythm of doing something that you might not want to do, and you show up and you do it with consistency, and you push through that, I don't want to do this, to the, holy shit, I just did that. Yeah. I just did a crow. I'm upside down.
Right.
And it does, and I think that's what contributes and maybe starts to lay the path to that place of enlightenment, right?
It really
because
does.
When you're wrestling with yourself with all these demons and these things that are telling you can't do this, or you shouldn't do this, or I don't want to do this, and you set up a path of, I'm gonna push through those feelings. I'm gonna do this physical thing, and it does it. It walks you towards. It pulls you out of that kind of that dark magic place, that poison place, let's say, and it brings you into a place of light where you can actually start to see what's in front of you, be open to what's there, and it becomes a spiritual place.
It really does. You've nailed it. It's part of the the work of yoga is that consistency and maybe even stepping into something that you really don't want to do. But if you can keep in your brain, kind of the end story, so to speak, or the end goals, like I'm going to feel better. I know I'm going to feel good at the end of this. It doesn't feel good now, but I know at the end of this I'm going to feel better. And other things start to shift. It's like I'm gonna love my life a little bit better too.
Well, and I think in our culture, right, like people talk about this body, mind, spirit. We approach things very compartmentalized.
Sure.
I'm thinking I could be really great at the gym, but if I'm putting trash in my body, right, there's these contradictions, and I think. I know when I'm working out or eating healthy or in a yoga class, right? Somewhere there's this synergy, right? That they're all kind of in relationship to each other.
Right.
We tend to want to compartmentalize them.
That makes a lot of sense.
If I'm feeling better about myself, I'm probably going to be more available to be in tune with spiritual places, and you don't even need to call it spiritual. I just might feel better about
Just
myself.
feel better about yourself.
Well, and also, if I may, the better you feel about yourself, the better prepared you are to help others. It's true. It's hard when I'm not in a place of being present here now and totally checked in, because I haven't been consistent with my process. I'm beating myself up or whatever those reasons may be. It's real hard to be in service to other people, and I feel I'm at my best to be available, to be in service to my community when I'm consistent with these health protocols. When I consistently show up and I show myself the self-love through being consistent, it just helps me be a better person for other people.
Right. But I think, we can certainly just kind of lay this out here, mind, body, spirit, yoga, working out, eating well, and kind of put it out there. But I think a common question, this is, I think, that came up in this email, right, is, well, how do I start? Where do I even begin? It's like, yeah, that sounds great, but how do I even just start? So I thought we'd start with physical fitness, but even from that, compartment really, how do I start, being mindful, I guess, around my own physical fitness?
Yeah. No, it's a good question. And it's, that's exactly... We just talked about this last night in book club. That is what I do as a coach. I'm leasing my enthusiasm, my ability to be consistent, my positive outlook on the whole process. I lease that to people as I chaperone them into a place of consistency. And so it's about setting a goal. In the beginning, when I'm working with someone that maybe doesn't have any experience with getting physical, they might, I'm not a gym person. Honestly, that's the one I love to get the most, because in my mind, I like to do what I can to open that up for that person. Oftentimes, they think that they're not a gym person because they have an idea of what that's about, and they can't understand how to connect with it because they're not connected with their physical body in any way. And so it's about setting small goals. Last night, Tom, who wrote the email again? Sorry. Mark. Okay. So Mark was at book club, and we talked about this very thing, in that how do you get started down this path of being consistent with physical, output, with exercising? And I related that I had a client once, I think actually a vet. This was someone that I worked with at one of the first clubs I worked here in the city, and it took him a long time to even come in for what was called his onboarding session. It's just you come in, you get introduced to the facility. He had been a member for years, even 2 years, I think, and had not done this. Had just not come in to have that moment where someone can just walk you through and explain how you can use this space for yourself. So I finally got him. And it was a long, intense meeting for sure. I don't think I've ever had one even today quite like it. But what we had to start doing for him, what his beginning first steps looked like, it was just a goal that simply 3 times a week, and we picked what those days were, he would, before going to work, he would pack his gym bag, he would put it in the car, he would drive to the gym. And that's it.
That was his goal.
We wouldn't go in. We wouldn't do anything.
Oh.
We were just getting acclimated to waking up, knowing that that's going to happen. This is the process to getting me there. And we finally just get to the gym. He would just sit and chill. He would just drink his coffee or whatever it was, and then he would go to work.
Oh.
And we built on that slowly. So to answer, I think, it depends entirely on the individual and where they're at and what they're open to. But it's about setting small, attainable goals. It's about having hopefully someone like me that can help through encouragement and enthusiasm, kind of help to walk you to those first few goals, and we get some consistency. But it's simple. It's a 20-minute walk after a meal. It starts small, but we build on it. It starts small, and the individual starts to realize through that applying themselves to be consistent with just that goal of maybe it's 2 20-minute walks after a dinner meal, but that becomes a form of self-love. That, we came across this quote, I think it was last week, the three of us, and I think we shared it, and it's that discipline to stay consistent with physical process. You start to understand that as being, it's a huge hug for yourself. It's a very good feeling. And that's what I hope to coach people through as we're starting that physical process to get consistent is, small goals. I'm going to help you get there. You're going to start to feel what it's like to love yourself in that way through that discipline. And that's not weight loss. That's not waking up with a lot of energy, but it's the first step to get there. It's kind of a foundational brick that we lay, and then we build on it slowly. And in time, not only does the person feel that sense of self-love that they're providing for themselves, which I think is profound. Most people just don't have that. But then from there, we can start to layer on more protocol, and then that starts to bring about these side benefits, better side benefits, better body composition, waking up feeling better, sleeping better. All of these things just slowly start to happen, and that's when it isn't a chore. That's as we start to see it become, this new thing that we have to get consistent with, to this is becoming lifestyle. This is becoming a process that I love. And it's about setting small attainable goals, getting consistent with it, and then in time you want more. I feel like that is such a dose of good feeling that you kind of start to get addicted to that feeling.
I like the point about setting the goal, and the goal isn't necessarily I'm going to lose 30 pounds or whatever. I'm going to start this diet, or I'm going vegan, or whatever the case may be. But it sounds like in this case it was just packing a bag and putting it in the car and getting to the gym, but not necessarily going in. Because I think people can certainly have the thought like, oh, I want to get physically fit. That means I need to go to the gym, I need to work out, need to do cardio and lift weights. And that becomes like this scary, intimidating thing, and they never do it. But then to hear what you just said about kind of really breaking it down into small parts, small tasks that a person can succeed at, that's the goal setting.
Absolutely.
The initial goal setting.
Yeah. To go from a place of apprehension and like, oh, that shit's not for me, to, wow, I got those 3 walks in this week and I'm feeling good. I might do one on Sunday. Just, and it's a complete mind shift. It just changes the mindset. That's what it is. It changes their mindset. And it's, it's really, once we can get that little click going, then it's real easy to just keep building consistency. And pretty soon, whatever their process looks like, maybe they had something in mind because they've seen it on TV or they're watching it on Instagram, but maybe in reality, it's something very different. We're doing yoga, we're doing swimming. There's tons of modalities of training that are there. It's just oftentimes, definitely when I'm starting with new people, always across the board, the idea is that it's just going to be hell going to the gym. It's just, and that's mostly their doing. I didn't give them that idea by any sense, but it's kind of working against those preconceived ideas that are, they're not serving anyone any good, and then getting them to a place of just feeling the reality of what putting that deposit in your health account feels like. It does. It's just a great form of self-love, and it's so important.
I think I can't remember if I've shared this or not. I use this metaphor when I talk to people about self-esteem, right? That, and you've had this experience when we've gone to Peru. People get off the plane in Cusco. Now Lima's a city. People are very well acclimated to Lima, but when you get to Cusco, it's a higher altitude. Everybody moves a little slower.
Reindeer, right? We got reindeer.
Not reindeer yet.
Okay.
That's in Mongolia. Other continent. But you're at this high altitude. People dress differently. They interact very differently. And off the plane comes my 12 little Americans, just bopping down the plane, all eager, and nobody knows how to get money. Nobody knows how to go potty. Nobody knows where to go, and they're just kind of bumbling around.
Right.
And then what happens is throughout the trip, right? They're slowly picking up, like, how do you ask for money? How do you make change? How do you count the money? How do you ask for the restroom? And by the time they get back on the plane, they are so acclimated to the environment that we end up in Atlanta. It's like sensory overload. But what's interesting is they've slowly been indoctrinated to a different way of doing things. Yeah. And I think self-esteem is a very similar discipline, and I think what you're talking about, I know for me, my hesitation about getting back to the gym was I didn't look like all the Adonises walking around the room. And my ego was really quite intimidated at showing up as like the beginner. And what I found was making these little steps. We worked out a long time at my house, and I think we started out with a lot of walking, and then we went to different strategies around walking and worked on it. But we slowly kind of built it up to a point where it felt like going to the gym was the next step.
And I have to say, I do love the way that we approached it for you, in that you're right. We had sessions where I would work with you at home. But then essentially you were going to the gym strictly for cardio. It was just a cardio program at the beginning. Yeah. And that gave you an opportunity to kind of observe. You were just there, just kind of as an active observer. You started to get a lay of the land. You started to understand that maybe what you had thought was going to be was maybe not quite right. And then in time, you did a fucking handstand today. Okay? You're upside down.
But when I first started going to gym, I had on my sunglasses, my scarf was wrapped around. Right. Don't see me.
No.
But the point I'm making to the comparison to the self-esteem and growing into it is now, like for instance, we just finished a workout. I got a nice protein drink, but I'm sitting here fantasizing about this meal that I would never have considered a year and a half ago. And I have the weekend coming up, and I have a lot happening. I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to get this in there? Because what I know now is I feel it's like this rush of happiness. Like even if it was just a half hour on the treadmill, I'm just glad I showed up and did it. Yeah. Like it's become part of my language. It's become part of my personal culture. Just like by the time we leave Peru, Peruvian culture is kind of a part of us.
Yeah.
Because and I think it's just hard. I think it's challenging. Right? Yeah. To give permission to show up and to be a beginner. Yeah. To show up and to kind of transition into the starting point.
Right.
But then I don't think it took very long. Well, I think we were working out maybe once a week, and I'm just like, oh no, we need a full meal deal here. After a couple of weeks, it's like, this doesn't work for me to do it once a week. But at first, I was just like, can't wait for this guy to go home.
Right. Something that just came to mind is, because I think this is a generalization, I think, about men and masculinity, and maybe how we're socialized as men. It's like, we have to, if we start something, you can't be that beginner. It's like you have to be pro. You need to know how to do it. Yeah. And you can't make mistakes. You can't mess up. Right. You got to be good at it. And I get a lot of that with yoga, because I talk to a lot of guys who especially those that work out perhaps or are athletes, they know about yoga and they know the benefits of yoga, but they're like, I am not going to a
I'm
yoga.
not going to fall on my face.
Exactly. I'm not going to a yoga class and see all these
face,
all these females,
Exactly.
you know, in
Showing
shape,
me up.
flexible,
Right.
females just doing all these poses, and I'm in the back falling over, not knowing what the heck you guys are talking about up there. I'm not putting myself, you know, in under those circumstances, which I understand. I get that, and I think back to the point of, you know, make small goals and have these successes. I really resonate with that because I try to do that with my yoga therapy clients, especially if it's something big that they're dealing with and so maybe a major decision that they've got to make for themselves, career-wise or relationship-wise or something like that. And we really try to find these little markers of success. Like, start with this, you know, start with maybe just writing down how you're feeling. And, or write down, it's like if it's career oriented, you know, what schools do you want to go to, or what do you want to study? Start there. You know, you don't have to figure out what the career is and what school you're going to go to, and how much money you're going to make, but start small. Have these small successes, because when you start to then have all these a lineup of successes, I think we begin to experience what you both are saying. It's like, oh, you know, I feel better about myself. I'm happy.
Yeah.
You know, you've achieved something. That's that shift. It's subtle, but something is shifting just because you had a success here, and another one, and another one, and another one. Although it may seem small at the surface, but they add up. They add up. It's like this little bowl right here, and if I'm just putting a gumball, you know, it's like there's only 2 gumballs in there. What's that?
Yeah.
But if you just keep putting those gumballs in there, it's going to be full. That's you. You know, you can feel full and feel accomplished and successful just by saying, I packed my bag.
That's right.
I got to the gym.
That's
I
right.
did it.
Yeah.
I did it, you know.
Exactly right. That's right. It does, and it's interesting, Jerry, to hear you, because I look at this the same way. Like, the nutrition, you know, we're walking the line with it, and it's not always that exciting, but the consistency within it, you realize, this work that we've been doing week in and week out, it makes you feel happy. It's a source of happiness. And that food and that choice, that's fuel for happiness. Like, it becomes, the nutrition is fueling the process. The process is bringing me this, like, to this place where I'm having book club, I'm meeting people that I don't normally, I'm having really great conversations. Like, I'm so open to it, and I'm here, I'm present and here for it, you know, and I'm not home smoking weed and playing Harry Potter all day long or whatever. Hogwarts, rather. It's Hogwarts is what it is. But anyway, so you know, it is a big shift, but it takes baby steps to get there. It takes small attainable goals to get there.
I'm gonna bring this out because it's really interesting. So I'm 59. I think I started with you when I was 58. But I had kind of, I guess I want to speak to the people who are just wondering if this is for them, because at 58, right, we had just come out of COVID. I used to go to the gym all the time, and even the last probably 10 years before COVID, going to the gym was kind of like this boring chore. And so I don't think I was really working right. I certainly didn't have the nutrition down, but at least I had the discipline of at least showing up once or twice a week. And then when I had hit kind of 57, 58, I just kind of had it in my head that my time was past.
Exactly.
And I don't even know that I consciously had that belief, but it certainly reared its head because my partner had some medical issues that led to, okay, we need to take nutrition seriously. And then we started working with the nutrition because we were trying to get his diabetes under control. And very quickly, through nutrition, his diabetes became much more manageable. But then it occurred to me, I thought, well, if we can do that, why can't I start going to the gym. And I was having lots of body aches and what have you. And so I remember talking to Nick saying, do you think you can help? Because I think at that time he was kind of emphasizing mobility. And I thought, okay, that will help. And through that path, right, I've been kind of picking up this new process of the cardio and the working out. But what was also happening was I was starting to have to kind of wrestle with my own stories. And I see you got the 4 agreements here, and in the book club we were just talking about the power of the word. Yeah. And so I started to become really conscious about how my thinking was obstructing my capacity. Yeah. And that the words I was using in relationship to myself kept me very limited. And so I had to start working kind of some shadow spaces that I didn't even know I had. And what happened is, as I started honestly addressing those issues, I think it started liberating a desire. It started liberating a willingness to exercise a new discipline. And what I found is I've kind of created this whole new story. Now, I've always kind of been this kind of like this mindfully conscious person, but I didn't even know that this background noise was going on.
Right.
And so I think it's important for those people who are sitting back there who are kind of not sure they can do it, that I think in a very short period of time, I lost a ton of weight. I've gotten into a lot more physical ability. My flexibility, it's not quite what I want it to be, but I see the opportunity of getting to where I want to be. I did one of your classes the other day, and I surprised the shit out of myself.
Right.
And so I guess I want to just offer that story because I think there's people sitting back there who immediately disqualify themselves. And I just want to assure people that it's very easy, if you're willing to kind of challenge yourself or to provoke yourself, to giving yourself the opportunity that you can very quickly shift that paradigm. I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to see what 70's going to bring.
Right, exactly. I hear you. Yeah, there's this, aspect of this, just piggybacking on what you just said there, Jerry, that, so what is that starting point for me? That's that person is kind of listening to this. Well, I may not, be able to pack a gym bag and get to the gym. So what's another way that I can start? It sounds like with you and your partner, nutrition was kind of the thing that kind of helped.
It was a crisis. Unfortunately, it was a crisis, but it was a crisis that provoked us to look and examine at what we were doing.
Yeah. So I guess my thought here is, just as we've been doing this podcast and things have been revealed and we've been talking about things in a way where, or people actually, let me say this, people have been listening to the podcast and we're talking about things and answering questions that people didn't even think to ask themselves, right?
That's right.
Like, wow, they're talking about stuff I never even thought to talk about. And I think it can fit here as well. Like, the question you might be asking yourself, well, how do I start? Where do I start? And maybe you don't know what questions to ask. And it might just be maybe sitting down with Nick, or sending him an email or something. Like, I don't know where to start, and maybe that's the start, really.
It's entirely, that's it.
That's
admitting that you just don't know how to start. It's exactly the starting point, yes.
And then the conversation begins, right?
Yeah, yep. And it's about, and a point, and a conversation like that, examples that I've had, it's entirely around, well, what are your interests? What are you interested in? What do you want to do? When I get someone to a place where we're going to lock in consistency with a training program, that's where I'm definitely asking, like, what do you want? Do you want bigger shoulders? Do you want a bigger ass? Like, there are requests that we can build in and we can make happen with that programming. But before we even get to something like that, definitely for the individual that, that has resigned to the idea that, aging and everything is just, we're going to go this way. That's very common. We're going to eat less. We're going to be less. We're going to do less. And then we're coming from a place like that, a program like that, to okay, well, what do you want to do? You've got this life ahead of you. If we change nutrition and we feed the process correctly, you can have decades more. And in fact, they could maybe even be better than what you've been experiencing this last decade. Like, it's entirely possible to have a real big shift. And, that's the question. What do you like to do? Maybe it's getting into a hike. These canyons are amazing. Or maybe it's getting to a park for a walk. Or, you want to get a push-up. There's just small, things. But it's about talking about what interests you first. And then we make small goals based on that.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to tie this. I think anyone could listen to this podcast, so, gay, straight, bi, whatever, and get something out of it in terms of this conversation. But I'm thinking about, especially in the queer community, we have a lot of different types of bodies.
Yeah.
We have trans bodies. We have more masculine, more feminine, more, right? Like, there's just a diversity of how we show up. Today we were at the gym, and there was this guy there with these beautiful red nails. And they went to go pick up a kettlebell. I'm like, don't break those. No. I wonder how this conversation might be tailored or shifted towards the community in a way that invites. I think there's a couple of dynamics at play here, right? We're a very body-centric community, right? We celebrate the abs, we celebrate the chiseled bodies, and if I'm a bear, or if I'm a twink, or if I'm a trans man, right? That the narratives don't always celebrate those bodies. And so I think there's that piece to acknowledge. I think what we're talking about, and what I think is more, what I value more, is the idea that my experience with Nick in particular has been less about bodiness and more about maybe embodiment, but also about health.
Health, that's exactly.
And being healthy. And I know he has a particular interest in working with older adults. And another narrative has been about how to move into the process of aging in a healthier way. I know when I'm in your class, I have the same kind of experience, except I think you have a lot more freedom, and not only just talking about how the body moves, but I also hear you talk about how it's kind of like bringing the mind and the spirit in alignment with the movement of the body. And watching you is like poetry. But I don't know, maybe there's something that we can speak to that would encourage folks in our community to maybe abandon the idea that they have to be a poster child for one of these magazines or a bar, but more about how do you become just healthier.
But if I also may, I'm thinking particularly about Bear community. I've been to Bear Week, P-Town for many years. It's one of the best weeks to go for sure. I love the crowd. It's fun. But it's not, but I'm so glad you said, because I was about to say it, but I knew you were going to say it. It is about health. It's not about how you look and how you compare and if you've got big pecs or whatever. My concern for those members of our community that are overweight, regardless of how they identify, is that is associated with poor health outcome. That we don't really have human trials that show that having excess body weight translates into longevity in any sense. And so that's the only thing, of course, this community that we have, it is for every body type, it is for everyone. We're not judging anyone here, but I personally want you to be healthy. Because that's how you're going to be a better member in this community. That's how you're going to have a better time on this planet. The problems that come with being overweight as we age, in particular, they're tremendous. It's why the modern healthcare system exists, is to treat these issues. It's not. These medications just allow you to slowly die, for the next 20 years while you're having congestive heart, diabetes, all thyroid issues, all of it. And all of it can be avoided, and all that malarkey, as my president likes to say, can be avoided if we just get your body weight back to, to a healthy place. And so it's not about, shaming people for being overweight. It's just more about, having I would love to have conversations with people just to know, it's more about being healthy and happy in your body. It's not that you have to do CrossFit workouts and look like those people. Mm-hmm. It's just that as a member of your community, I'm concerned, about what being 100 pounds overweight means for you 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you mentioned health, because I prefaced this whole episode calling it, physical, mental, spiritual fitness. And I think that certainly has a connotation about what we're just now talking about. There's this story, this line, especially in our community, that you have to look a certain way. And if you don't look like that, you don't feel like you fit into this community. And so I think by shifting to saying health, hopefully gives a different perspective of how we can view ourselves and how we show up, I think, in our communities, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. Because what I do see now in our community, it is pretty vast as far as body types and what we see and what people celebrate. And I think it is wonderful that you can show up as the hairy bear or the muscle Adonis or the otter or the twink or whatever, and however you might label those or identify. But the question is, are you healthy and happy? I love that.
And are you healthy and happy enough to get to a spiritual place, right?
That's it.
You're saying it's fitness. That's right, spiritual fitness. It would imply that there's work to be done to get there. It doesn't just happen. You're not just going to wake up and be in nirvana. True. Like, it's a process, just like training, just like nutrition. We have to set goals, we have to build consistency, and we have to stay in a place of consistency for some time for transformation to happen. Mm-hmm. And I think very much with spirituality, I'm learning so much from both of you. With regards to this, I haven't, I've been having come from Mormonism and definitely getting rid of that about 20 years ago, it did kind of leave an empty spot inside, We were just talking about this last night at book club, how it's fucked up because it's a thing that just, kicked us in the nuts and slapped us in the face at the same time. But at the same time, we feel like we kind of want to have that part back in our lives. And I think that, for those out there that can identify with that have been down that Mormon path, that are certainly not a part of it now, there's a need for spirituality, and there's a need for that fitness. There's a protocol, a training protocol even, that we're going to have to kind of get through to get to a better place of spirituality, to understand something like the 4 agreements like we're doing in book club right now. That's spiritual fitness. That's a spiritual workout, right? And I would just venture to say, again, it's this type of work that we're doing is available to anyone, regardless of body, size, type, and whatnot. But I would just say that I think that if you're in a better place with your physical health, and that doesn't mean you have to train every day, but that does mean that we're eating foods that are going to fuel happiness in your body, that allows you to get onto that path of spirituality.
I can't remember if you were on this trip or not. Maybe it was my first trip. I think I've talked about this on the podcast. The first trip we did to Peru, and we did the ceremony with Ruben, and it was several hours. But at some point in the ceremony, he had us come downstairs into like his kitchen area, and he had these large platters of fruit. Were you there for that? And so there was like pineapple and oranges and apples, and Peru and the jungle is just full of exotic fruits. And it was just visually a very stunning experience. And then his instructions was to pay attention to the colors that we were attracted to and to bring those into our body. And I had such a profound experience in that moment. And I literally came home from Peru, and for 2 years I was like a vegetarian, and my whole premise was not about diet, and it was about eating food that felt nurturing,
honoring yourself,
and I would pay attention to the kinds of foods that I was eating, and I would just ask myself the question, Like if I go into a restaurant, I look at the board and I think, what are these items up here on this menu that feed my spirit? Mm-hmm. And so I lost track of that. Now I'm kind of back in that. Now I think about, last night I had the munchies and I thought, oh, and Bruce has got some cookies stashed away. I know he does. and I thought about it and go, nah. And I forget what I opted to, but I remember thinking, yeah, I'm just not willing to compromise.
You don't want to derail the happy train. You're just going to derail it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when alcohol comes up for me, because frankly, I don't drink. Like, even at this point, like if I even look at a drink, I just get heartburn. So it's like, I don't know, it doesn't really happen. But occasionally, we'll be out and beers could happen. And I really am like, I don't know, it's going to mess with my gut biome. I know it is, and I'm real happy with where things are at. And so, and that, Jerry, that's what when I coach, that's what I call like this protective stage. I know I brought this up with you before. If I can get a client to a point where through consistency with nutrition, and maybe there's a little bit of resistance work going on, and the results that come and the physical, like just reality change of like, wow, this is me in this world right now, they get protective. And they're like, oh no, I don't want that Twinkie, or we're not going to Chick-fil-A, and I don't want that beer. Like, it's very easy, and especially in those times of hungry horrors. I know where you're at. Believe me, I still make mistakes, but that's why I have frozen grapes in the fridge. Because that's just, I get a bunch of those, and I don't care if I eat all of them, it doesn't matter. I'm solved. I wake up and I'm not disgusted with myself, and I'm ready to rinse, repeat, and keep going. So I like that you're thinking about the 3-bean salad and you're jazzed about it. Like, what a weird place to be. Exactly, it's sardines.
Sardines.
Exactly. But what a silly place to be. But it's because you're fueling happiness. You got a happy train going on right now.
But I think I think anyone watching this on YouTube, for instance, I just think it's important. I kind of wish I could show before and after pictures, but where I'm at today has taken 18 months, maybe? It's been about a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And there's been lots of tears, there's been lots of frustration, there's been a lot of fuck-its. Mm-hmm. But I would say definitely like the last 6 months has just been... in fact, I'm going on this trip in June, and I'm just already having anxiety about where do you work out?
Take your TRX. Take your TRX.
And hang it off the antlers of a reindeer.
Reindeer antlers, definitely. Get them in there.
Yeah. But I just think it's easy to kind of, again, project the story. Oh, look at them, mm-hmm. right? They're there. And I think it's important that people recognize that we all kind of have these journeys in this process. And, the other tool, and what I appreciate about what Nick does is he tends to kind of vet these Instagram people. But I've just noticed that Instagram has I've gotten some great recipes off of Instagram. I've gotten some great little workout routines out of mm-hmm. Instagram. I know people can access your yoga online. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think Nick's developing a website. So
Yay. Something you said, both of you said, that sparked another lane I think people might be asking about, and it's failure. That fear of failure. Mm-hmm. Like, that sounds great, you guys, but I can't do that. Mm-hmm. I can't. Mm-hmm. I can't. Or if they feel the motivation and do try and maybe have a couple of days of success with eating or whatever the case may be, and then they fail, air quotes here, they stop, and think, well, this isn't working and this wasn't going to work in the first place, and just kind of toss it into the trash, right? I think that's a reality for a lot of folks, that they just think that they can't do this. What can we say to our audience about that fear of failure?
I mean, just simply put, don't fear it. I mean, you have permission to fail. You do. It's going to happen. I do it. You do it. We all do it with consistency within this process. There's going to be some things that happen that come up, and it's okay. It's going to happen, and especially in the beginning, there is going to be some periods of like, oh my God, this is great. Oh, this is horrible. I can't do it. And it's common. I guess what I would say to that, John, is that it's very common. It's a very human thing. Absolutely. You have permission to fail in this process, but you also can make the choice to pick up and try again. And when you do that, that's the self-love part. That's the experiencing the fear and understanding that it's okay, but at the same time, you turn it around and you show some self-love, and we start again. We simply begin again. Mm-hmm. And I think that is an important thing to remember. I typically, it depends. Some people that I work with are really hardcore and are really ready for it and definitely beat themselves up when they don't hit certain metrics. And it is, I appreciate having that high standard for yourself, but I think it's really important to also, through the process, or with the idea of loving yourself, to know that you can fuck up, you can fail, it's okay, it's totally part of it. There are many times I go, not this week because I'm training with this crazy person all week long, but there are plenty of times when I get to the gym and I don't fucking feel it. I just don't have it in me. The gym crack's not enough, the outfits aren't cute enough, the boys aren't cute enough, whatever the fuck it is. And the music's not good or whatever.
Right.
The things that kind of push me through to get me, it's just not there. And, I still get something done. It's maybe not a 10, out of 1 out of 10, it's not a 10, but it's still a deposit. It's still effort made. Mm-hmm. And it still keeps me away from, exactly, it's a gumball in the bowl. Mm-hmm. And it just keeps you knowing that there's a flexibility with it in terms of success. It's not always going to be that way, regardless of if we're just starting or if you're someone like me that's been training for 2 decades. Like it just definitely, it's always something that happens, and you just have to give yourself that permission to fail, but also know that you can also just pick it right back up again. Mm-hmm. It is, and that is a good thing to train in the brain, I think.
Right. It's human condition. I think we just have to remember it's human condition to mess up, to not get it right all the time. You're going to make mistakes. That's just the human condition. And if we can find a space for that, that's part of the health in all of this, I think. You said something very poignant, and you said to begin again. And that's something that we learn in meditation, in yoga. Mm-hmm. Meditation is a process of beginning again, over and over and over again. Because who can just sit in complete stillness and mind blankness for hours on end? And if you're that person, you're not human.
Or you're sitting at the stoplight not paying attention.
That too, right? That mindfulness and mindfulness meditation is a series of starting over and over and over again. Because inevitably you're going to start thinking about something while you're meditating. Oh, I got to buy groceries. Oh, I got to do this. Your mind wanders. And so if you're able to catch yourself in that moment, then just acknowledge, oh, I'm thinking. You don't judge it. You just acknowledge it. That's human condition. And then you take another deep breath and you start again. It's the same, I think, with physical fitness. You just start again. It's something that I had to learn. I love to eat. I love sweets. I love chocolate cake. I love brownies. I love cookies. I love hamburgers. Bacon cheeseburgers are my major food group. I can have them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. No joke.
Amen.
No joke. But sometimes I'll get into that mindset, like, I better stop eating these. I'm eating too many burgers. Oh no, what's going to happen, to my mind and my body? Oh no.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'll do my little break. But what I do with my nutritional coaching and even in yoga too, it's about talking about, well, what do you love to eat? Yeah. Like, I'm going to say chocolate cake. I love chocolate cake. I said, well, you don't need to exclude chocolate cake from your diet necessarily.
That's right.
You may just have to, put a pause on it. And when you want it, have it. Yeah. You're not messing up your diet. You're not, you're not going off track completely. Just tell yourself, I'm taking a little break. I'm going to enjoy this moment because I'm at a
Absolutely.
party, I'm on vacation,
Absolutely.
it's my birthday,
Yeah.
whatever. Enjoy that moment because you're going to start again.
And see, Jerry, and that's something, for you in June, you're going somewhere and you're concerned about, and I get it. And that's the thing. So, yeah, we have options. One, we can talk about protocol and we can put a plan in place. Two, maybe you've trained your tits off the entire time and it's a break that you've well deserved and you have to do that for yourself. But it's interesting when I think in working with you, I know I got sick there once with some stomach thing and it took me like a week to get back. And when something like that happens for me, I'm not training, okay? The happy train has stopped and we're moving a bit slower or I don't even know. So it's a hard thing to get, but I will tell you this, and it's important. If you're in a place of consistency specifically with resistance training and you do have a period of time off like a week because of illness, you do have to ease back into that. You cannot simply get back into all the crazy movements. And the thing that I've always done, my process of getting back into it, it's always yoga. It's always what I've done because it I can go slow flow at first. I can have plenty of child pose. I can just get in downward dog and experience and just feel my body and the creaks and the cracks and the snap crackle pops, whatever.
Right.
And then pretty soon I'm doing energetic flow. I'm doing single leg hold, and then I'm like, okay, I'm ready for this. I'm ready to get back into it. And it's the process that I do. I love yoga. I love it. But I specifically, that's what I've done for years now. That's my process back into it if I've fallen off the happy train.
Well, here's what I like to acknowledge, especially because we're doing the 4 agreements, right? The power of the word. If I'm using the language I can't,
that's fucking right.
Exactly.
Then you're right.
Exactly getting the reframe is I won't. It's not that I can't, it's I won't.
Yeah.
I think people have to be willing to start where they're at.
Yeah.
When I first started working out with Nick, I had this terrible fall, and still the left side of my body is not quite right. But I was like on a cane for a couple of days. It was a pretty bad thing. And my body was not flowing in a way that I desired it. But we just kept at it, and eventually, it got there. But here's the other thing. I love to watch wildlife shows. And Bruce thinks I'm sadistic because I love watching the big cats, how they'll stalk.
Just rip the bellies open of things. Is this where we're going, Jerry? I agree with Bruce.
It's the circle of life.
Totally. No, I'm all set, David Attenborough. Thanks very much. Right,
let me finish my story. But I like watching, big cats are really interesting, right? They will strategically plan, calculate, orchestrate the idea of getting that zebra. And then at some point there's a chase. And they will go after it, but they don't always get. I've never seen this in a wildlife show. I've never seen the lion just go, I'm a failure. I quit.
Right.
I'm never doing zebra again.
Lion dies then, right?
And then the lion goes under a tree and dies. Right? No, it recoups. It pulls itself back together, and they go for the next target until they eventually get to where they want to go. And I think that's a really powerful metaphor for us that we have our aspirations set, and not every plan is going to be executed perfectly. But if we're consistent and keep moving in that direction, then we're more likely to have zebra burger.
Baby zebras. Right? But you're exactly right. That's the skill to develop, is that when you get the wind knocked out of your sails, you get the sail right back up. You have to rebound. You do. And that is a real skill to develop. It's tough. It's tough for me when I get to the gym and I have a plan in place and there's just too many fucking people doing weird shit and I can't get done what I want to. It used to be that would cripple me. And now I'm happy in that, and especially as a trainer that I am, because if I'm working in clubs with people, I don't just have the club to myself. There's a lot of people doing crazy shit. And so you have to have a plan in place because you've got a client and they're paying for that hour and you've got to get work done. And so I like to think of it as like my MacGyver skills. I've developed this ability to, on the fly, be like, okay, that's what I had in mind, but we're going to move to this because I'm going to keep that in mind and hopefully get back over to this type when it's open. And so it's the ability to let it happen. And yeah, maybe it's going to disrupt what you were so intent on doing because that's your process and it's making you happy. But that, getting the wind knocked out, getting the zebra, whatever, but the zebra gets away or whatever. The zebra safely gets away.
So instead of zebra, we'll
with
have
the
a
babies.
meerkat.
I mean, that is a real, that's an very important part of this whole process of self-development and betterment and getting to a place of spirituality is just understanding that the downfalls will come and you've got to embrace it also. You can't let it just I'm done, I'm going to go back to just eating burgers. Sorry, but you know what I mean? Right. So it is I guess it's just the reality of accepting that it is going to happen from time to time, that things are not going to go how I want to, and that's not going to stop me. I know it's part of the process, and I grow a little bit when I deal with it in a positive way.
I want to bring this out because I think what we're talking about, this physical health paradigm, that I think one of the gifts that have consistently shown up for me and kind of like the spiritual practices that I do is even when I was 40 pounds overweight and not at my healthiest, it felt like there were times in ceremony and in that place in connection with spirit where I felt like there was always this invitation to love my body and loving it the way that it is, right? To kind of bring that concept. I think the part of that quote, I think it was the Instagram message that we were sharing was this. It was a concept about making investments in yourself. And I think you could have really changed that a bit to say, bring love into your consciousness, right? Like Ruben does this exercise, right? Where he says, think about your heart. Your heart is working 24/7. It never stops. It's always there. It's always working. Send your heart some love. And your lungs they're always there. Whether you're sleeping, but your lungs are working,
right.
And and he goes through your entire body and just says, your eyes are always seeing things. Your ears are always hearing things, and whether I'm, large and voluptuous and extra lovely, or whether I'm, some other body version, how we show up in the world, bringing that consciousness that our bodies are operating. And the way that we can bring it love is to give it permission to move, to give it permission to experience the bounty of nutrients around us in the garden. That there are just simple things that we can do, and not for any other reason than to give this heart.
To honor the systems.
To just honor the systems that are persistently working. And that has been an interesting meditation for me to carry through. I've done it for years, but certainly in the last 18 months, that there are times, a lot of times, like when I'm in a hot tub, I'll just kind of like do this inventory, and I'll just say, wow, thank you for getting me to this space. And I'm just going to be really committed to nurturing you, because I want you to be around for another 50 years. And so everything we're talking about, I think, is really powerful, but I think it comes down to that root is, can we, in our behaviors, send the message of our beliefs? So, if I'm eating garbage, I probably have a narrative in my head about I deserve garbage. That's right. And if I'm bringing bounty and health and nutrients into my body, that may speak to a narrative of love. Is that fair?
I totally agree, and I think to go even further, it's that I do that. I honor my systems in my body. I understand them the best that I can through the trainings that I've gone through, certifications and whatnot. And it's a fascinating system. And to honor it with nutrition and with fitness, is certainly, a better place than the feasting on junk and not moving enough type of thing. But to even take it farther, I think it's not only just about honoring your own system and getting to a place of gratitude with all of the magic that's going on in this body, but then I get to help other people do that. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, that's the real honor. That's the thing. That's the protective stage for me, where I'm like, no, I'm not going to go out and have those beers with you because I need to get up early and work with this insane person or whatever. but because I get to do this, and I get such a great feeling from doing that, not just for myself, but doing that for myself so that I can help others doing it. And I think that it becomes a very compounding and community, building and supporting thing. It's not... I want to be clear, it's not about shaming people for body size. It isn't. It's just simply that, the individual can be happy and can honor themselves and still be overweight. It's just, it's just my concern is that longevity and lifespan and, just the science that we have on metabolism and humans and heart health in particular, and the way in which our systems cannot support that type of excess energy on our bodies. And so it's not about shaming people. It's just more about a place of, I want you to have this happy train too. And maybe you could be a source of happy train for other people also. And it definitely gives you a better feeling about being in this world. I think last night I brought it up again because I love that message you got from that Navajo woman that talked about, she was in a place of trauma. It was the geography of it that was just so challenging. And I can identify, like, these mountains, it's hard for me. So, I know they're the most fantastic, gorgeous things. I've lived out east for years, flying back home, flying over them. My God, it's a truly impressive, monument of nature. But I have so many negative associations with it because I think of the rurality, the conservatism, the small town mindedness, the homophobic bullshit that I, went through while living in those mountains. And now I'm looking at them very differently because I am excited to be in this valley with opportunity of people that I can help through this process so that they can be vessels of happiness and maybe share it and help it with other people. And it's just such a shift from, oh, poor me, I hate being here with these people, to, wow, I'm here for these people. Like, it's a different, and it's all happened for me through nutrition and through fitness.
Mm-hmm. We'll just call you Happy Homo Fitness.
that's solid, yeah. I can't wait to let my dad know that one.
Right. Oh.
Well, I hope this podcast will provoke people who might be interested, right? Both of you are professionally involved in this kind of a discipline. I think if people just wanted to send us emails or connect with us with questions, or maybe they want to access you guys for some kind of coaching or guidance on this, that they could do that through the website.
Absolutely. Yeah. Either through the website, you can even through Instagram, because we have an Instagram page. Yeah. Send us a message there. So it's mindfully_gay. Mindfullygay.com is our website.
Yeah.
And you can see what we're doing there as far as our events, but also contact us through that.
We have a Facebook group.
So there's ways to initiate, contact with us. And just to kind of wrap up this, part one of this 3-part series, I'm just trying to think of kind of summing it all up. What we began with was kind of talking about, physical fitness, physical health, and how they really are related. And we want to certainly, I think, keep those two words because they certainly do fit in this paradigm that we're talking about. But the road to, mental fitness and health and spiritual fitness and health. And we're already touching on it, and I hope, in our next episodes that we'll get more into this. It is that shift. It's a mindset shift. And it does say that in the 4 agreements. The first agreement is be impeccable with your word. Just making that shift from I can't, to I can even, is a shift.
Or I am.
Or I am. Seeing the mountains, in a different way, having a different viewpoint, a different perspective is starting to make that shift. But that's a mental thing. And that might not be easy to do right off the bat. But maybe the starting point for you and us is physical.
Most definitely.
It's get on the yoga mat.
Yeah.
It's get on the treadmill, or
get some beans in your diet.
Yeah. Or just sit down and have a conversation about any questions that you may have about your physical health and fitness.
And if I can, like this, for me, with nutrition in particular, it all starts with an intake form that I have. I send to the individual, they send it back to me. Mm-hmm. It is my joy to get these. I love, it's an invitation for me to come into your life and to understand your concerns and to share those concerns with you and to start to come up with solutions about how to make some changes to get to a better place. I love that opportunity. And it's a complimentary hour. I don't charge for that because it's discovery. I'm picky about who I work with. I really want to work with people that want to make change. It's a transformative process. And so, if I don't think they're ready for what I can offer through that consultation, then I don't offer it. But I love just that opportunity to hear about what they're, concerned about, what they think they've got going good for them, what they, might want to try. It's an opportunity to just ask questions, but most importantly, it's an opportunity for them to hear someone care about those things, because I think that's where people get stuck, is they're kicking around some ideas in their head only with themselves. They're never talking about them to anyone else. And I know that, any one of us would love to have conversations about whether it's physical, mental, or spiritual health, just to have conversations. That's what this community is about. That's what I'm seeing when we meet, even not so much maybe with game night, but definitely with book club that we're doing, I don't know. I'm talking about things with people that I've just never talked about, and that is an important first step, right? In all of this is just getting some engagement with other people and having conversations, and it just brings you. I don't know. It just fills me up with a good dose of social vitamin.
I just have to highlight. If you can hear in Nick's voice, or even see if you're watching this, you can see the light in Nick as he talks about this. When he says he loves this, he loves this. When he says he feels joy when he does this, that is so absolutely true. It resonates off of him. And that's because he has stepped into the mental and spiritual component of his purpose, I think, in this life.
Absolutely.
And because he stepped into that, he has this illuminated presence, and he finds joy in helping others, because it fills him up, and it continues that cycle. The more that he's filled up, the more joyful he is, and wants to continue his dharma, his work, his duty in life here.
For sure.
And Jerry is the same way with his work that he's been doing for 2 decades plus. You can feel the joy that he has in providing for his community in this way. When I step onto the yoga mat and teach and see those bodies in motion, it just fills me up. I've been doing this for over 20 years as well. I thought I'd be done with this years ago, but that fills me up and wants me to continue doing this work. That's the fitness part, but it has filled me so much mentally and spiritually. We want to share that with you. That's why there is Mindfully Gay. We keep saying we are having this conversation. We want to share this conversation with you so that you too can have the conversation and experience this same joy that we're having.
It's there for you.
It's there for you.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Nick has a training session on Saturday in the lodge.
Damn it. See, I knew today's session wasn't hard enough. I was hoping to break him of that. But yeah, I know it's coming for me.
We're going to work on core.
So until next time, stay true to yourself, stay authentic, and we'll see you next time on the Mindfully Gay podcast. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Mindfully Gay podcast. If you enjoyed our conversation today, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. This way, you won't miss out on any of our upcoming episodes, where we continue to explore fascinating topics and share meaningful stories. Your support means the world to us. See you in the next episode.